Okay, we're live. Good evening and welcome to everyone here. So today's webinar on understanding nature and environment, the Mizo experience, will be a conversation with Dr. Malsom Dangliana and will be moderated by Ashley and myself. Ashley and I are both members of Fridays for Future, which is a global youth-led movement for climate action. And today I'm representing Fridays for Future India, and Ashley is representing Fridays for Future Mizoram chapter. So our speaker today is Dr. Malsomdangliana, or Somte Sir as we call him. Somte Sir is an author, historian, and teacher. He is the sole author of the book Negotiating the Past, Memory, History, and Culture of Mizoram. He has written research articles for many books and journals and has helped edit several books of history, especially with respect to the history of Northeast India. He has completed his MA, MPhil, and PhD from the University of Hyderabad, and in 2013 was the recipient for the Dr. Sheila Raj Award for Best Thesis, which was on the aspects of cultural history of the Mizos during the British period. Samte Sir has been a professor of history in several universities and is currently the managing director of MS Academy in Khatla, Aizawl. And he's also teaching in Government Aizawl West College. Besides the academic field, Sir has a keen interest for reading and debating, and also enjoys trekking and playing the guitar. We are so honored to have you, Sir. Would you like to say a few words before we start?
Yes. Thank you so much, and thanks for a kind introduction, Aman. And I would also like to thank the coordinator of Friday for Future for inviting me to share some of our concerns regarding this environmental issues. So I also believe that today's world need to learn from what was happening in the past. Therefore, my lecture will be mostly concerning with the pre-colonial Mizo society. So if uh, Ashley and you can guide me
Yeah,
up, and we can carry on with the presentation.
yeah. So we'll start. So my first question would be, as is with many northeastern states of India, Mizoram is a state that the general public of India, including me, like we know almost nothing about Mizoram. And I don't think there's a better day to change that than today. So my first question to you, sir, is who are the Mizos and what is the history?
Coming to your questions, the term Mizo is derived from two Mizo words, mi and zo. Mi in Mizo means person or a people. The term zo has two meanings. According to one view, zo means highland. Okay. Another meaning can be of maybe, let's say, cool or crisp. That's a sense of a feeling of cool, or let's say it's a sense of refreshing air environment of higher altitude. So the term, if you look at the term carefully, zo is never used to denote a cold temperature, but it's rather the term used was for that cold is vod. Okay, so as though in a contemporary sense, as well as its uses in the terms like Mizo, is a cultural and also it denotes ethno-linguistic group and identity. So if you look at from the perspective of a linguistic, the Mizo falls under Tibeto-Burman people. Therefore, we can also say that Mizo can be translated as Highlander, okay? The people living in the hills. The term specifically denote a person with Zo ethnic belongingness, and that is Mizo literally meaning a Zo person. So the term has a broad ethnic classification of subgroup inhabiting in the region, let's say Lusai in India, the Mizo in India, and Sin Hills in Myanmar, and Chittagong in Bangladesh. So Mizoram, Mizo generally refers to those residing in Mizoram, and various subgroup of Zo family have also joined and adopted of what we term it as Mizo, while others have not. Okay, so the term Mizo is often used as a name to cover all ethnicity. So it is also an umbrella term to denote various clans such as Mar, Ralte, Lusei, etc. And a number of dialects are still spoken under the umbrella of this mentioned clan. And some of them are like Mizo Trong, which is official language of Mizoram. And some of them spoke Mar language, Paite language, Lai language, and the list goes on. The Cognate tribe who are living in bordering states of Manipur like to call themselves as a Mizo, but not as a Mizo, okay? But they like to call themselves Mizo. And while the people of those who are living in Myanmar would like to call themselves Zomi, and the people living in Mizoram call ourselves as Mizo. Uh,
Wow.
these people might not have agreed upon the formation of nature, okay? But what is surprising is the myth of Qinlong and Kampat legend, which can be acted as a kind of instrumentality in building up identity. So I can say that those who call themselves as the Mizo are the Mizo.
Wow.
Okay, sir, thank you so much. So now that we have a basic understanding of who are the Mizos from the introduction, I think we can dive straight into the main topic for tonight, which is understanding nature and environment, the Mizo experience. So I will start straight away with the first question to Dr. Somthea. Historically speaking, what can you tell us about Mizos and our relationship with nature and the environment?
Uh, you see, to talk about the pre-colonial Mizo society, it would not be at all incomplete without explaining the Mizos and their relationship with nature. Okay. But if you look at the pre-colonial Mizo world, it was totally environment because every aspects of life, they are all imbibed within it. And all the process of life is in intimate connection with, or let's say animate, or in animate beings that surrounding his or her life. Therefore, in trying to understand the Mizo ethnic ethics, let's say, and environment, nothing can be left out. And all aspects of Mizo life were connected with nature, whether it's knowledge and ideologies, social values, custom, belief, law, social norms, marriage, hunting, and all these types of activities, even the process of agriculture and even the games. And all this had to be dealt in understanding Mizo society with environment. So in pre-industrial society, people have always valued mountains, trees, forests, and animals. Many elements of nature has venerated and protected. Forest trees has been associated with names of god and goddesses. And tradition also held that species which were considered as an important aspect of nature were the basis of local life, supporting system, and were integral to bring about the harmonious life. So therefore, even in the traditional Mizo society, nature's integrity to a large extent held an important part of value and ethical system. So if you look at carefully on the pre-colonial Mizos, uh, Mizo society had to be, it has to be, if you don't understand the relationship of man and nature, then you cannot have a complete scenario of the pre-colonial Mizo society. Society was environment, as I had already said. Even the social structure was formed by the process of their subsistence, and also economy was connected with nature. Pre-colonial Mizoram was an area undisturbed, unaffected by the industrialized and also mechanized world, where you have trade and commerce, which is not actually affected by the outside world. And isolation of the hills may be the reason why they still live in this stage. Therefore, environmental history is automatically related with how the society functions.
Yeah.
And the various structure that Mizo society constituted were mainly to dispense with various functions. These functions were basically the product of negotiating with nature. And Mizo inhabited hill area covered by thick and green forest. They constantly negotiated with nature, which of course influenced the the process of their migration and resettlement and even their security. And then see, in fact, it was this aspect which finally led to the emergence of a very specific form of administration that is, we may call it as chieftainship at the village level. The constant pressure of backward economic system turned them to procure their requirements simply by zooming, okay, which is a slash and burn as we know it today, and hunting. And moreover, frequent disputes and war occur at different village level because of insufficiency of land and food. Mm, the hierarchy of the tasks was thus determined according to the social basic needs. Thus, the higher status was mostly accorded with those who displayed physical strength, okay, courage and bravery at time of war. Even hunting and zooming, and also those who dispense various functions according to the needs of the society. It was, of course, praiseworthy service rendered to the community that entitled an individual a prestigious position in hierarchy rather than their hereditary social and political, or let's say economic status. So if you look at carefully, okay, in the 19th century, the Mizo were generally described as in a very good manner, especially with the colonial writers. They called the Mizos as nomads, warlike headhunters, wealth savages. These are the descriptions of, see, it's very surprising. Okay, these were the description given to them by the colonial ethnographers uh, who had superficially looked at the society at the layer level, let's say.
Yeah.
That hunting was ascribed to them due to the misunderstanding of their practice of collection of head of their enemies. It's a trophy of evidence. Okay, it's not nothing less than that. And however, they were not at all uncultured savages. The British official in their accounts, they mentioned numerous times that they were self-disciplined and a high level of community values, well-defined customary laws, and culture to a high degree were found with the Mizo society. And then if you look at McCall account, okay, McCall, of course, he is a colonial writer. He made an account, mentioned that Mizo were found to be highly intelligent, perceptive, adaptable, and disciplined. The Mizo inhabiting the present day Mizoram had very little contact with the outside world prior to the coming of the British. The influence of other cultures, or let's say, whether it's religion, upon theirs was very limited. The isolation also resulted in the development of very unique kind of a culture. And also let me say that it's the ecological system, which was not much influenced by the surrounding people. In the pre-colonial period, every Mizo village was independent sovereign state. There was no at all concept of nation at that time, but of course, uh, because there was no unifying force or a system to bind the villages together, except for Selesi Sangsari. Okay, needless to say, they function as a little republic. So, looking at this social organization again, I like to board out the institution of this society. Institution governing society, the village and the family have jurisdiction over natural resources. The village and clans were interrelated. They are all interrelated by the kinship bonds alone. If you look at carefully within the village, social structure consisted of very basic form of stratification, which vested the chief with the function of making cars. He was, of course, he was guided by his council of ministers, or let's call them as the village elders, and other officials, and they exercised in accordance with the customary law. This power extended to the appropriation of resources. Okay, it's very interesting here. Defining boundaries and also allocating the privilege of resources to be used among different families at the village level. This was, of course, shaped by unstructured but highly organized system of collective community and activity. No social or economic distinction was recognized. Family had equal shared resources. Due to lack of occupational and professional specialization, the division of labor was very simple. The size of the Mizo social group were it's not that big. It's very small. So there was hardly any transaction outside the social group. But if you like interwar, let's say marriage or some commercial purpose, this might be different. But the division of labor was minimal. Okay, and as the gender situation again, men played a greater role in organizing formation and decision making. There is a little variation among members of group in terms of access to resources. Notion of private property were very poorly developed. So in the pre-colonial Mizoram, having moved away from, let's say, if you look at the process of change in the society, having moved away from the gathering stage, when they began to have a settled life, and because of animal husbandry and achievement in harvesting, the Mizo society started to become more or less a stratified society. Now the position of a man wealth was measured in terms of sial or the grain of that he owns. Okay, the grain. And as the social ladder was built, and if you look at this carefully, the most respected position in a Mizo society was that of Tang Chua Pa. And for women, Tang Chua, no, a wife of Tang Chua Pa. There are two kinds of Tang Chua. One was in Lam Tang Chua at the domestic level, which could be achieved by giving certain prescribed number of fish to the village. And other was called Ram Lam Tang Chua, which was, let's say, which could be also achieved by uh, certain prescribed animals. The Tang Chua Pa was believed to have earned a position not only in this world, but also a paradise or Piara afterlife. You see, he became the protector, the provider of the society. That's why he became an important person at the village level. The most prestigious position of Mizo society could now be earned not just by accumulation of wealth. You see, this is very important, but
Yeah.
by serving others through bravery and
Yeah.
skills.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah.
The Mizo society in pre-colonial period was able to maintain a very less stratified economic society. Although I talk about uh, a stratified society, but you see that the reason for this was that the society measures the quality of respect in ability to giving out the community. Because of the system, that social equality could be maintained. If not, only even after a certain life. Okay. Therefore, the position of the esteem could be achieved by fair competition, as it was not hereditary like that of the chief. Even a small minor class, let's say Liandoa, could also become Guangzhou. Okay, it's not. Uh,
It wasn't hereditary.
if you compare with the caste system of India, it's totally different. So the absence of sub inequalities in land ownership within the body of cultivating proprietors who formed the bulk of the population was the basis for a sense of solidarity within the village community. Okay, it's the binding
Yeah.
factor. The chief dealt not only with social and religious matters, but also judicial question as well. Moreover, if you look at the constant shifting of village made it impossible for a mass wealth. Okay, they move from place to place. They are semi-nomadic kind of people, and it's not at all. It's not possible to acquire a mass wealth in the form of immovable, or let's say they cannot acquire because they have to carry again and again. And members of the family had to able to carry on their backs of what they had owned in the village side. So very few household property and also domestic animals form the property of Mizo family. So supposing let's say Gayal, okay, the animal Mithun was most valued, and the one who owned them in abundance was regarded as rich. Even the price of the bride, if is measured in terms of Mithun. Okay, so if the girl
Wow.
is pretty, and then she would earn a lot of mitun. So it's a kind of investment. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. If again the economy part, uh, we may characterize Mizo economy as what environmentalists term it as natural economy.
Mm.
This is because that the Mizo draws almost all of its resources from nature. They
Mm.
could keep up with economic system with agriculture as the basis.
Mhm.
So economic sustainability of the Mizo was based on forest and agriculture and hunting. Okay. And the agriculture system of Juming, which is slash and burn as practiced in Mizoram, was destructive to the soil. This led to the Mizo to constantly shift from one side to another side because the land become fallow after 5 years of time.
Oh,
And
right.
this and inter-clan fighting were the mainly responsible for the nomadic patterns of the Mizo life. One of the important elements of Mizo economy was that it was a bamboo-based economy. Okay, it was, but even our chief minister was very fond of bamboo, and he talks a lot about this bamboo. And it was a bamboo-based economy. And bamboos were found in plenty. You find everywhere. Like we do also have a chero, okay, which they misname it as bamboo dance, but it's not actually a bamboo dance. It's chero dance. Bamboo are in plenty. Bamboo of various types met the essential needs of the people at every stage of its growth. It served as specific purpose. Okay, even in building a house, using those materials for building the houses. So it's provided all types of material could be made out of that bamboo. The new suits provided the new suits, okay, which is called Mao Tuai. It's very tasty. So it's the suits provided
Yeah.
food. Yeah, provided material for making basket. These are beautiful, beautiful ones. Which you can get it easily from the market. And also household implements and mature bamboo provided a primary building material. So bamboo is all in all. Okay, bamboo is all in all. Despite of its great value, the bamboo also became a source of great misery to the Mizos because we experienced bamboo famine. Okay, this one I don't have time, so I will not be explain. I will not explain in detail. But the entire population was engaged in agriculture, apart from village blacksmith. uh, there were neither craftsmen nor shopkeepers. Okay, you just have people who are engaging themselves with agricultural activities. So each household was capable of living by its own labor. The man cleared the jungle for cultivation. He walked in the dune and hunted in the forest. So the periodic visit was made to the nearest market in the neighboring Qatar. Okay, so it Qatar, Chittagong to purchase salt, brass cooking pots, and iron implements, which were of course barter for cotton, bee wax, and ivory. And the most valued livestock was the domesticated bison. I had already explained it. It was used as a currency, as an indicator of wealth, the chief
Wow.
constituent of bride price. And other livestock like pigs, goats, chicken, dogs, they are all primarily for consumption, but are also vested with sacrificial significance.
Mm.
In considering the economy of the Mizo, the supremacy of the Mizotis has to be accounted. Okay, since he was the owner of the village land, he was responsible for choosing the village site with the help of Ramhul. Okay, whenever they shift, and also for distributing Jum land with the help of Ramhul. Besides being the supreme justice and also the owner of the land and also abiding forest, he was the controller of the resources within the village. He
Mm.
received the rent or tax on the use of such resources, amount of which varies from clan to clan. He advised the council of elders to help him to govern the function, and he acted as a kind of, but with, of course, with the help of the elders. He is uh, along with the upas, okay? And the chief carried on with administration with distinct customary law and regulation. And this can be well seen in if you look at the books of Enni Peri, Lusai Custom and Ceremony. The influence of cheese was thus very huge. Okay. Now, in talking about the role of women again, because I think without touching the role of women, it's incomplete. So, in the difficult terrain, no single economic activities can sustain the household. Typically, there is a basket of economic pursuits, cultivation, cattle rearing, outside employment, perhaps, let's say, some trade that requires equal participation of women. Thus, women households are equally partner in struggle with to achieve economic security. So, if supposing, let's say, if we have definition of this work, okay, definition of work, if you don't consider domestic work as work, the definition of work, that means the Mizo woman will never do any work. Okay, but if you calculate the definition of work, is also calculated within the domestic level. So you see the multiple roles played by women during those times. So the labor is in no way less than that of the male members. They work equally with men in the field. They help in looking after domestic animals, and of course, they take care of their husband and their children. You see, plenty of work during those times. And the wife does almost everything to help her husband in cultivation, which are men tasks. The role of women in maintaining, it's very interesting here. Okay. The role of women in maintaining environmental ethics was also gathered with a knowledge they gained from their contact with nature. So, moreover, they played very important role in transmission of knowledge through storytelling. Okay, these are the role of women. They played a very significant role in transmission of language, transmission of knowledge and language in storytelling, myths, folk tales, folk song, and dances to younger generation. Yeah, and uh, we could not move away from negotiating with nature, because when we negotiate with nature, culture had been formed, and because of this, that needless to say, that we can say that the economy, the social structure, every day-to-day life in the pre-colonial society was the result of their contact, their negotiating with nature.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. That was like a very short, interesting history lesson.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
before I continue on with the questions, I would just like to encourage everyone who is watching either on the Zoom or on YouTube Live that if you have any questions at all, you can post the comments either in the chats or on the YouTube Live, and we will be attempting to answer those questions after this discussion is over.
Yeah.
So, in light of what you said, sir, Mizos have a very rich history with nature in terms of both our social organization and our economy. And you briefly mentioned how, this has an impact on our myths and our folktales. So my next question would be, how has this cultural significance of nature translated into our stories and our myths and our folktales? Can you tell us more about that?
Okay, let me try my best. Okay, the only language in which the unthinkable, or let's say unknowable, can be taught and spoken of is through a sacred myth, or let's say through a folktale which was passed down from generation to generation. So in a tribal thought structure, myth is more intelligible and acceptable than any other mode of knowing the reality. Okay, so knowing the reality means it has to be best expressed in a myth. So this is the best kind of a language in which you can know the reality and the supernatural beings. And the fact that the thought comes from unthought is born by tribal cosmogonic myth. So the Mizo tribes, the connection that human develop with nature in shaping of the earth. So at the beginning, let me begin by saying that the earth was believed to be flat at first. I think it happens even with the European at the beginning. The earth was believed to be flat at first. There is a legend that the king of water, okay, Why is the spirit? The spirit fell in love with a human being called Ngai Teyi. She rejected his addresses, okay? And he pursued her and surrounded the whole human race on the top of a hill called Punlupu. As the water kept on rising, the people finally decided that this is because of Ngai Te, so we don't have a choice. We have to throw you to the water. So finally, Ngai Te, they threw Ngai Te into the flood to save
Oh
themselves.
no.
Proceeded. It was the running of this water which cut up the surface of the world into deep valleys, high hill ranges of which the world was to the ancestor of the Lusai consisted. Okay, and the Mizo have also they have also a legend called the occurrence of great darkness called Timzing, caused by the solar eclipse. During the Timzing, during the solar eclipse, okay, but during this time you have to call it as during the Timzing, several awful things happened. The skulls of the animal killed, or let's say chased, became alive. Surprisingly, it's not a ghost story. Okay, this is just a myth. And dry wood revived, and even stone became alive, and they produced it, surprisingly. And even now, the man doesn't have anything to burn. In that darkness, many had undergone general transformation, and some into various types of animal, others into birds and even flies, depleting the human population. Very sadly, okay? It happens during this time. And the myth describes how the creatures played an important part in the construction of the world. So in the myth, the creation of the world was attributed. Look at carefully, okay? Because let me try to understand the nature of the myth. If you look at carefully in the myth, the creation of the world was not attributed to supreme being. Okay, the early phase of the creation is characterized by total integration of the creation of all that came into being, its environment in nature, because even the creation of the world is itself is uh, let's say it had a lot to do with environment. So it's nothing to do with the supreme being or God had created the earth. They did not really have a thought on that. So again, if you look at the folk tales, I almost if you look at the folk tale again, and in-depth studies of the Mizo folk tales, uh, you have to dig deep in the meanings of this folk tale. Okay, so in order to extract the state of mind, imagination of the people of those period. So if you look at carefully in the tale of Maorwang, Saza was personified as the savior of Maorwang. And when her stepmother wanted to kill her, Maorwang then and thereafter became a nanny of the cult. Okay, so there was a kind of uh, uh, let's say a mixing kind of a relationship with the animals. So Song Jili again was said to have fell in love with a snake. Okay, very strange. And she
Wow.
even the smile of the snake. And I don't know the meaning of that, but just giving you some of the. And Savom Tepa could become a bear. Okay. And while Tungam Tona, he transformed himself into a tiger. So he
Wow.
was known as by the name Kami. Okay, tiger and me is a person. So he married a beautiful maiden again, surprisingly. Van, or heavenly fairies representing themselves into human form could also be seen. You see, there's a kind of uh, uh, what do you call a life between the animals and even men. But I don't know what actually the meaning of those folk tales. But the state of mind is what I would like to bring here is that a kind of relationship that they had with their nature had uh, constructed a folk tale like this. So
Wow.
those are some of my thoughts on folk tales and myths.
Yeah.
Those are very interesting. I think even more detail would be appreciated, but since we don't have time, we'll move forward with the next question. So, given the importance of myths and folk tales, and I think there was even a concept of sacred geography for us Mizos, right? So, sir, I would like to know what role did nature play in our beliefs, and how much of nature did we actually incorporate in our belief system?
Okay, you talk about belief system, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you look at carefully about the pre-colonial Mizo society, I think we have to understand, as I had gone on saying again and again, we have to understand nature and its impact on man. Community and individual ecological behavior are grounded in the concept and perception of natural resources. Okay,
Mm.
and these beliefs are interwoven in religious symbols, cultural practices, social custom, and method of resources use. Before intuition of colonial power, it was the belief system of the Mizo that had shaped and affected everyday life of the Mizo. The understanding of the ecology and environment was shaped by the belief system that they maintained. It was this belief system which was shaped by their traditional knowledge that further formed their understanding of nature. Okay, so let me go on with the belief system. It might have been a belief after life, even the present life among the Mizo, that if you do harm to nature, it will come back to you. Okay, if you do harm to nature, it will come back to you. So if you do good in this life, you will be rewarded in afterlife. It is important to note that the greatest thing that a person can do to earn respect and also to achieve the so-called PRL in doing goods to the community. So it's these are all expressed in serving his fellow mates and feeding them with fish. Okay, it's like a kind of a relationship
Mm.
which you maintain. So providing your society with whatever you have therefore became the utmost achievement of man which strive for throughout his life. The
Mm.
represent of the Mizo society as not only as an egalitarian society, but also in settling the value of humanitarianism is very high. And this
Mm.
grows in close connection with so-called Klongai now. Okay. And also with the principle taught by the Indian Renaissance, if you look at the 19th century Renaissance thinkers, serving human is serving God. This is also very similar to the teaching of Christ. Okay, if you do good to the poor and you do it to me. So these are a kind of the example that I pull off. And then likewise, Kwang Choi, other festive ceremony. Uh, if you look at this carefully, are a time when the rich did not only show off their wealth, but when they became, it's a time that they became a blessing to the society. Okay, it's not only showing off, but you sometimes have to pour some of your material like guns, like nickels, those who assemble and you have to throw them. Okay, so all the people together and says this has to, they will. It's like on a bad day, someone bears the big bowl, and then everybody are rushing to get those kinds of meat. And the poor not only had their stomach full of rice, but even meat. And also the lucky one got many valuable items donated and thrown by the Kwang Choi Pa. Okay, so it's like redistribution of wealth. They did not
Mm.
keep it for themselves, so they give it back to the society. So although Mizo society well, society was classed as enemies. Okay, enemies. If you look at a deeper study of their life and culture, it would reveal that worship of supreme being and that sacrifice were also made to the spirit only to appease their anger when they became ill. So let me say that they also believe in the maker of heaven and earth. Uh, and at the same time, they also believe in the Huai, okay, who had inhabited, uh, let's say, the mountains, the valleys, and the spring. And they trust that the heavens for fruit of the field and for rain and sunshine. They believe in Heavenly Father, whom they call it as Puvana, or Kwanu, Kwava. God was believed to be omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, creator of all things. But they believe, but but the myth doesn't really show that he does have a connection with the creation of all things. There are a number of superstitious code and conduct which could only have been meaningful in the presence of a universal and eternal God. Most of the writers describe Mizo belief system as animism. McCall observed that before the occupation of their land by the British, the Lusai were wholly enemies. They believed that life was subjected to a number of evil spirits which could only be appeased by sacrifices. Okay, and they believed that even big tree, hills, big stone, etc., were inhabited by various spirits, and they were responsible for their illness, dread, drought, storm, bad crop, accident, which might be fell on them. So they live in a terrible fear, always afraid of anger of evil spirit which might harm them. And they offer sacrifice very frequently to the evil spirit which abandon both in the jungle and in the rivers to avert their anger. So, however, it must be understood that the Mizo did not worship this. Let me repeat. It must be understood that the Mizo did not worship this evil spirit or demons. They only wanted to propitiate them as they were believed to be the cause of illness and injury. Okay, so this has to be kept in mind. So, and about the existence of God, I had already talked about the existence of God. Let me go on. And the Mizo had a very vague idea of God. They believe in the existence of one supreme God, whom they call him as Patian, a God of all humanity, goodness, and they thought that he lived beyond the sky, and he was recognized as Chung Patian, God above us. Okay, they did not believe that he had much to do within their day-to-day life. Okay, they were isolated from God actually, and sacrifice were not made to obtain peace with God or redemption with if you compare with other religion. Okay, it was not so done in the Mizo society. Again, the term Kwanu, mother of nature, was also used to mean as a synonym of Patian, particularly if you look at the song and poetry. So it was regarded as the guardian and keeper of the village, as Louis observed that sacrifice was made only twice, okay, only twice in a year to the good spirit before and at the harvest. So good and evil spirit. Beside this, people also recognize the presence of other supernatural beings that were respected by them, like Van Chung Nula, not only the evil one, okay, but they also have the good spirit. Um, they were called like Van Chung Nula, guardian of the heaven, Kwa Vang, Lasi, Ramhuai, or evil spirit again. Uh, they are again various forms of Ramhuai such as Trao, Zom, Koshing, Pum, Muitha, but I don't want to get into these details. Okay. And the Lassi were not considered as demons or divinities. Okay. The Lassi seems to be more concerned with wild animals over whom they were believed to have complete control. So if you please the Lassi, then it will bless you with killing the animals. And the Mizo system went hand in hand with nature. They believe that they have a strong connection with nature, and even their belief system is often deeply connected with their values, customs, and their practices. Most Lusai clan believe the creator of universe to be a good spirit, Patian, and evil spirit like Hua had more to do with people life because they are inhabiting every stream, like I said, every mountains, forests, uh, because the people are the one who cause illness and misfortune. And plague, yes, fears. Lusai spend their life on constant endeavor to appease those spirits. Let's say through a plethora of sacrifices through the help with the help of the priests.
Wow.
Okay. Again, so interesting. I wish I could hear more of it, but I feel like we have to move on because we have very little time on our hands and we have a lot of questions coming. So we'll move on to the last bit of this discussion before we take on any of the questions from the viewers. So from all that we've heard tonight, I think it's very safe to say that Mizos have a very strong and a very rich connection to nature, especially in the pre-colonial times. So, sir, could you tell us what value exactly did nature hold for these Mizos, and what kind of knowledge did we gain from nature, if we gained any at all? And as a society, were they aware of the importance of preservation of the environment around them?
I did not get the last part. Anyhow, let me go on with your question.
Oh, should I
There's
repeat it?
please.
Yeah, okay, so it's more of a three-part question. What value did nature hold for the Mizos? What kind of knowledge did we gain from nature, if we got any? And as a society, were we aware of the importance of the preservation of the environment?
Okay. There's a lot to talk on this subject because
Mm,
the value of nature of the Mizo society is in plenty. And first would be a traditional knowledge, okay, which they used to term it as TEK, traditional ecological knowledge. And tribal ecological knowledge is a traditional knowledge like Western science. It's based on accumulation of observation, okay. It involves a cumulative body of knowledge transmitted through generation and also a belief on how people fit into ecosystem. So first would be scientific calendar. Okay, let me talk about that, how they perceive time. And this can be understood as a environmental calendar. Listen to this carefully. Because the very formation of this knowledge come with the context and how they arrange with their time with agriculture and they name this month according to the season. Though very unknowledgeable, the Mizo had their traditional method of counting months and days. They did not work on the Zoom on weekly basis, but they worked according to the season. The calendar of the Mizo, though it might not be exact, but it's so much in accordance to what we had today, the present calendar. Okay, very
mm,
surprising. The months given by the Mizos were connected with season. So let us try to understand the names and the meaning connected with the months. As the Mizo were agriculture people, they counted the years, months accordingly. So let's try to understand Polkut, January. Okay, Polkut. Polkut is the time when they observe this Polkut. And Ramtuk is February. Ramtuk means a period for sowing the land. Okay, so it was well known that at this time we have to sow, it's a period of sowing the land. And Vautha is March, when a particular flower like Vaube flowers or bloom. And also it means that it's a festive season, their leisure time. March is their festive leisure time. And Trautha, which was April, Trau meanings when a ripe good place. Okay. And another one is Traumir in May. It means sprouting when the crops started to grow. And
Wow.
very interesting thing again is lalmanganu lomroy ni. Okay, it's very interesting. Even you could find women to be very wise because you see June the Mizo where Lalmanganu was very keen observer here. Okay, Lalmanganu ascertained one woman is said to have asked for lom. Okay, lom is like help in which they help back, help in which they have to help you back. You help these days, and on the next day they will help you back. So she observed that the day carefully and she always asks for long in this particular month because it was the longest day. So the amount of work, so she was very wise.
mm,
Uh, some even extend to the extent of 21st June as the exact date of Lalmanganulom Roini.
Wow.
So he means day. Okay. So they seem to understand the day very specifically. So one again is Vokniak zone. Vokniak means big footprints. Okay. It is a
Wow.
time there is a lot of rain and and the footstep doesn't seem to fade during this whole month. So you have a continuous rain. So, and Kazing is again August. August is a month that the Mizo referred as a month in which Ser. Okay, Ser is a kind of. I'll be explaining this one in in a later of my lecture, and they consider this month to the month of ill luck.
Oh.
So they
Why?
say that during this month that the misfortune happened. Let me come to that. Till today, most of the marriages do not. Most of the uh, people who are about to get married would not like to get married in the month of August.
Yeah, that's true.
It was said natural felling of a tree causing harm to the human happens during this month. So that's answer to a question. They therefore always refrain walking under a carved tree during the month of Hazing. They also believe that a tiger also, the tiger attack also happened mostly during this month. I don't know why.
Hmm.
And considering as to why the Mizo feared the month, it might be because that it was the month of, let's say, where we have severe rainfall, where the land like Mizoram, even today, we have the
Landslides.
misfortunes like cyclone, which happen,
Mm-mm.
which
Yeah.
becomes disastrous to the people. So so you don't want to get married in those rainy days. So even your dress will go on. So it's this month is like a curse. Okay. And again, 15 is September. Uh, Titrin. Okay, Titrin. T means die. Trin means live. The month is when they believe that the dead departed the village. Since it was the time of the corn, they celebrated the departure of their loved ones by a festival which was called Mimkut. And Kuang Choi is October. Okay, Kuang Choi means when the wealthy men in the village perform the feast for the whole village.
Oh.
This was the period of leisure. Uh, the rice having ripened and trust, they seem to be enjoying this season a lot. And again, Samulpa is November. Okay, this month is when the fur and the wool of the animals fell. Uh,
Hmm.
Samul is uh, the fur. Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Mm-mm.
And potluck is December. Potluck means having done. Potluck, having done. It connotes a time when all the rice was harvested and only the cover remains in the field. If you look at this carefully, having studied different months, it can be safe to say that the Mizo ascribed somehow the months
Wow.
very correctly, having kept
Yeah.
the present December the
Wow.
month of the
Yeah.
year. They do so, however, with the way which they carry out with their cultivation. And here we mainly talk of rice, as rice is the staple food among the Mizo. All other crops and meats are like side dishes. Okay, side dishes. So if you don't really actually eat the rice, that means you don't actually eat the food. So according to us,
Yeah.
it's food.
Mm.
So there's a saying that man doesn't live by bread alone. That doesn't really have a meaning on us. So if we say that man doesn't live by
Rice.
so rice, it would have same meaningful impact on the nature. So rice is a staple food, and all other dishes are like tomato side dish.
Mm.
And the next point would be diversity of resources. Okay. Uh, in conjunction with the various practices of Western use, the Mizo were remarkable for the great diversity of biological resources they utilized. They valued very wide range of biological diversity and evolved cultural practices. The Mizo felt that they should neither harm trees or animal unnecessarily. You don't have to do this. They are saying like "Ting tepo in beng anne," okay, meaning that the tree can even hear us, even though the saying meant to avoid bad mouthing to other person in the forest. But if you look at this carefully, it connotes the respect they had with regards to the trees as well. Uh, Coming to the question of preservation, okay. Animals were viewed to have superior instinct to human. They largely depend on the behavior of an animal to predict and understand what was happening surrounding. For example, a fowl, okay, was frightened at night and made an unusual sound. It was regarded as a sign that someone would die.
Mm.
If the gibbons hooted, okay, during the night, it is a sign that someone would die and natural death. So animal also serve an important purpose for human. This was, of course, perhaps that why they venerated animals to a certain degree. For instance, the cock, okay, the cock is an important timekeeper in the Mizo society. If the cock crow, then it means that they call it Vartian. Okay, it's very early morning in which you have to wake up. So a cock is a timekeeper again. And they were also used for the purpose of choosing a fertile land while choosing a new site for the cultivation. So they will rest for the night, and then if the cock doesn't crow, then they would say that this is not at all a good place to have a harvest. So
Wow.
the animals had been the had been used as in a different way. And regarding this environmental ethics again, let me come to this, uh, or let's say let's put it as a taboo. Okay, the pre-colonial Mizo society drew very clear line what should be done and what should not be done. This was represented not only in the form of customary law and regulation, but sometimes they live. Sometimes they have to have very strict rules of this, and they try to maintain and keep up with this principle as far as possible. Okay, therefore, uh, thought all these things are represented as a taboo. These are environmental principles in which the Mizo felt that they are obliged to live up to.
Mm.
Though the word taboo is used here, in which is sometimes referred to in a Mizo as tianglo. Oh, tiang prohibit tianglo. That means you are not uh, supposed to come here. You are not supposed to host a webinar. And webinar tianglo is a prohibition. Okay. And the taboos that are going to be pointed out, as well as to be read as a parables or signifying saying that the Mizo, which help the community as also not nature live in harmony with one another. They serve as the guardian of the Mizo social value. Let me repeat. They serve as the guardian of the Mizo social values. Tianglo means unclean, unsafe, which is not allowed on the ground of superstition.
Mm.
Supposing, let's say, if someone finds, or let's say he discovered a water spring and kept that information to him or herself, that was prohibited, young love. Okay. It was believed that it would bring misfortune to the family of the finder. Then again, uh, cruel treatment of other people, animals, ill treating and torturing them is regarded as tiang love again, prohibition. Okay. And it was believed that those who did so would experience much suffering before their own death. It also implies kindness towards other living beings. Saying of the Mizo, maybe we can say that you have to be kind to animals. Otherwise, then it would bring bad luck even to your own life. One who harms the animal entering a garden will suffer the same fate as the animal he hurts. Okay, hurting an animal will lead to a person to have a child with ugly birthmark. Okay, so if you are supposed to get married, so you have to be kind to the animals. Harming parts of animal consumption is an act of an overly greedy person. It will lead to poverty. So helping a helpless animal while facing attack is a blessing. So the creator Puvana will help us when we face the other attack as well.
Wow.
The one who destroyed the one who destroyed an ant hill, okay, an ant hill, the tiny insect.
And
Oh yeah,
Mm.
ant. The one who destroyed an ant hill intentionally while passing by will be followed by ill luck. It is said that they will be sick on a festive day. So if you are sick on a Christmas day or a Diwali, then everything is lost. So
yeah.
they think that if you intentionally destroyed an anthill, then it will be an ill luck. It is said that they will be sick on the festive day, bad luck. Okay,
Mm.
and this belief or saying will not be actual in reality, uh, and of let's say of what happens to the wrongdoer. Okay, but it, however, testified that the Mizo were the one who care and show kindness towards even the smallest animal and ant. The ethical code were maintained in such a way that it is considered as harmful for a person to behave cruelly. So, with a low population, let me conclude this one. With a low population density, low demands, limited spatial scales, they necessarily have low level impact upon environment. However, pre-colonial Mizo society, if you look at it carefully, it possesses ecological wisdom which even shape even our ethical values of
Mm.
today's Mizo society. So it was this value system that maintained by the Mizo in connection to environment that shaped the social and ethical values and also the standard of the Mizo society, which helped them to live harmoniously with the community as well as the environment surrounding them. Okay. Uh, those are the explanation which I can give with answering to your question.
Okay, so thank you so much. That was very helpful, very insightful as well. I learned a lot about my own culture, which says a lot. So I think we can move on to the questions from the audience. And since we don't have a lot of time left on our hands, maybe we can answer them briefly and we can answer as many as we can. So the first question is, did colonialism remove our traditional belief system on nature in any way?
Okay. Um, colonial, what?
Did colonialism remove our traditional belief system on nature?
Okay, okay. Uh, See, colonialism came with Christianity, okay, in the hills. Colonialism always came with the Christianity.
Mm,
Therefore, a lot of change can be seen if you look at our state of mind and even the way we dress. However, we also have to know that Mizo adapted themselves, that they adapt to a kind of a modernization brought by these people. Uh, And in the process, they created an identity that had many new elements, but still deeply rooted in the cultural history of the people. So if you look at carefully the cultural continuation and existence, let's give an example like concept of life after death. Okay, concept of life after death from traditional belief system. It can be seen even in the Mizo Christian lyrics composed for the purpose of offering condolences. Let me just read out in English. Okay, heel stretches far away, where the spirit pass along, and and they reach heavenly paradise. It goes on like that. So what I like to explain here is that translation of the lyrics and incorporation into the present day of religious life as a part of, let's say, a Christian lyrics clearly point out there was a residual kind of a nature in the residual practices. You see,
mm,
funeral is very dear to the pre-colonial business society. At the same
mm,
time, for the Christian, that funeral had been resembled with the paradise of heaven. Okay,
mm,
so there is a kind of a residual nature of religious practices, and it further indicates by the manner by which these residual practices has been negotiated, accommodated, and even reformulated in the present day belief system. So we see a kind of a residual nature. We still have a kind of a traditional, let's say, the ongoing fabric culture, which is also connected with Christianity. So it's somehow like a hybrid culture. Okay, so
mm,
it's residual in nature.
mm. Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is, What are your thoughts on how we as a society can reconnect with nature in today's contemporary society?
How do we connect?
With nature in today's contemporary society.
Okay. See, i- if you ask me that, this question reminded me of a movie called Avatar, okay, where life of Avatar was so connected with nature. On the other side, we have a group of people who, uh, on the other hand, try to harm the nature in the name of
Mm.
development, or try to destroy nature, or let's say our very sources of our own existence. To connect with nature again, I think the most crucial one is to have to create awareness either in school or let's say university. More practical kind of activities has to be done. And then in fact, one of my friends said that that every year when I celebrated my birthday, I was planting a tree. So, and let me take one example again. The other year, while I was working at Patsunga University College, okay, so planting trees is a kind of our usual routine every year. And besides that, our principal, Dr. Toning, took the initiative of introducing what he termed as a now Banhuan, okay, orchid garden, in which each of the department are responsible to plant at least one orchid in a tree. So we are so connected with our own planting. So every day we'll go and watch the orchid garden. So I firmly believe that the teachers and students should get enough awareness in this regard.
Mm, that's very true. Awareness is the first step to actually taking action. So that's what we here at Fridays for Future are trying to do as well. So one of the questions in the chat box is a brief one. That was such an interesting creation story, sir. Can you repeat the name of the Water King again from the folk tales?
Water King. Ngai Te Tui Huai is the Water King.
Okay, thank you. And we're running short on time, so we can take one more question if that's okay with you, sir. Hello?
You're audible.
Okay, so since we're running short on time, I think we can take one more question if that's okay with you, sir. Hello?
I think his connection is
Is it mine or?
no, he's moving. So,
Okay, sir, can you
one
hear
last
us?
question.
Sir?
Yes.
You can hear us, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Like, what is the question?
Yeah. So it is gonna be the one last question. That's what Ashley was just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What is the question?
Ashley,
She was stuck. She doesn't.
she's back. Yeah, Ashley,
Okay,
what was the
so I'm
question?
audible?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So one of the viewers has asked if sir could recommend any good books to read more about the Mizo culture.
Um, see, we edited one book, okay, which is called Mizo Narrative. It's a research collection of a book which me and Dr. Rohming Moy edited. It's a very brief kind of uh, Mizo history. So Mizo narratives could be obtained from Amazon. So you can order online. That's a very brief one. Even we present it even to the president of India and also the prime minister when they visited Mizoram. So it's very interesting.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. That was so great, and I learned so much. I'm sure everybody learned so much, and we are so grateful that we had this session, and we hope to have more sessions. So keep a watch, guys. Yeah, and that will be the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
so
to
much.
everyone for coming.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Asti. Thank you, everyone.
thank you.